In this exercise, we'll be creating a very basic version of the Flappy Bird game. I've got a completed one right here and I'll demonstrate it. The idea is that when I click my mouse, which will represent touching the screen, it should make the little white cube jump up and down representing the bird. Let's just hit preview and we'll take a look at this now. As you can see here, it jumps up and then gravity pulls it down, so I'm trying to get it through. And I failed there. Let me just hit play again. Let's just rewind this and try it again. If I can do it. And as you can see, I need a little practice. Okay, now you saw something else happen there too, besides the score being counted. If I hit that little white box in the middle of the green area, it's known as a power-up, and what it does is it shrinks my cube and it makes it easier to go through the next one. And there I hit it again and ended the game, but you can see it counts every time I go through one of the barriers, and I have a home button and a play again button. And if I hit home, I also have a high score button. So you can see here, currently the high score is 4. I can go back and I can try it again, hit play now, and it starts it all over. Let me just refresh this though. So we'll build one of these today. And I'll just let it die here. Boom. Now before we start building a new one from scratch, let me just go over some of the basic architecture of this game. As you can see down below here, we've got 4 separate scenes. So we'll be jumping from scene to scene when the timer's right. For example, the play again, so of course when the game is done. If you wanted to choose high score, it would take you to this screen, which displays the high score, and our home page, which is the play now and the high score button. The initial scene is basically the game. The play again is this screen, and again the high score is the score with a back button that takes you back to the home. Now let's go back to the game itself inside the inspector here, and I'll just move this down a bit. You can see here that we've got a number of actors. We've got the player, and then those bars that move across the screen: bottom bar, top bar, the ground, the score counter, that little cube in the middle, the power up. And then we've got some of these other helpers, one called the spawner, which is down here and out of sight, which we'll get into in a little while. It's what creates those bars, or regenerates the bars that come across. The score, of course, for when we want to check the score, it's the score box, which derives the score from an attribute. And the button that we use to get us from scene to scene. So if I go up to attributes, you'll notice we have one that we created called Game Over, Boolean, so it's either true or false. We set it to default as false. Top bar Y, we're going to actually set a random number that's going to generate the position for that top bar when it comes in each time from the right. Something to keep track of our score, and something to keep track of our high score. So we've actually got 4 attributes that we need to generate as well. So the 4 attributes, I believe there's 9 actors here, and 4 different scenes: home, initial, play again, and high score. So we'll start this from scratch. We'll go to File, New, and I'll just resize this to fit the screen. And I'll call this Flappy Birds 01, and I'll save my file under the same name. That's the project title. Save as, save it in your project folder, Flappy Birds 01, and save. So we always start with an initial scene, and we'll start from there and we'll work out from that. The brunt of the project is inside of the initial scene, so we'll just double click that now and we'll create some of our actors. I will keep that other file open as a reference, but let's start by creating our player. Before we move ahead, let's put in our game attributes at this point. just going to go over to the attributes and we'll just click the add button, and I'll choose Boolean for this first one. That's true or false. And we'll name this one game over. Hit my enter key, and I'll add the next one. We'll make it an integer. And this one will be for establishing the coordinates for the top bar when it comes in. We'll call this top bar y. Enter that. And the next one will be for keeping the score. Keep it as an integer. Choose. Rename it to score. And the one after this will be for recording high score. So integer, choose, and I'll call it high score. Let me just make this a little more legible. There we go. Alright, so we've got game over, which is defaulted at false. It's unchecked. An attribute to record top bar y, which we're going to ultimately set to a limited random number. And then something for score and something for high score. Let's just save this file now. And I'll go back to my actors. And I'll start just by dragging the player on the stage, and I'll start affecting that. Bottom bar, I'm just going to BTM bar. Top bar. Ground. Score counter. And that's that little green section. Score. High score. The power up. Let's fix the spelling here. Okay, and one more, which will be button. We're going to use a generic button to navigate from scene to scene. Okay, this is definitely worth saving at this point. And save. Let's drag the player down to the screen now, and we'll affect its size and position. Let's double click on the instance here, and under size I'm going to change it. I'm going to make it 20 by 20 pixels, and the positioning I'm going to make sure on the X axis that it's at 100 pixels from the left. The Y I can leave where it is. Now we'll go into the prototype, double click it here on stage, and we'll add some behaviors. First thing I'll do is I'll just create a general container for the rule, and we're going to base this on the fact that the game is not over. So let's just go to attribute, game over is false. So as long as the game is still running, the following will work. I'm going to add another rule inside of that. Okay, so this one here will be for the jump, and then we'll set another rule after that to set the gravity basically. So I'm just going to change this name right now to jump, and then I'll start to address it here. So this will be based on a touch. So actor receives event touch is outside, so basically not touching the little square will create the jump. And let's start by creating a move. I'm going to use move 2 actually, so that I can basically bump it up 30 pixels from itself. Move 2. So position, we're going to keep it at 100 pixels from the left. It's basically going to just be on this vertical line that's always 100 pixels. And under the vertical, we'll just go to player, position, Y, and we'll add 30. So plus 30 to that. I'll just hit my little checkbox. Now I want to put this this move inside of a timer. So let's go down to timer. I'll drag that up here. And I'll drag this inside of the timer. Now, I'm going to say for 0.2 seconds, and I'll say run to completion, which means it will execute even though the condition may not exist the whole time, it will still run. So for every 0.2 of a second, when I've clicked, my little player should rise by 30 pixels. I can quickly check this. There's not going to be any gravity yet. Let me save my file as well. So let's just go to preview. There we go. So that works. So let's just counter that with a bit of gravity. So we'll put it outside of that conditional. I'll just collapse that. And let's go to accelerate towards. Accelerate toward. This will be my gravity. Again, position, 100 from the left. And I'm not going to bring it right down. I'm going to bring it about 40 pixels above the edge. And I can always align my ground to that spot once I drop it in. So let's just say 40 from the bottom relative to scene. So now I should have some gravity. Let's just save this. And when I click on the screen, it should bounce up. There we go. So we've got our basic motion for our square Flappy Bird. So the next step will be to create the little barriers that come moving in from the right that will have a gap in between that we have to drive this little guy in through. So let's go back here and back here.